French squad for the Six Nations 2024, folks. Fabien Galthié has picked a side which looks pretty bloody big, and will have high expectations for this tournament. We're going to go through the squad, the fixtures, and you guys can let us know your thoughts on how you reckon this squad may be going to go. If you haven't seen them already, I've been doing a few squad previews with some former players, current coaches. Adam Jones from Wales, Bernard Jackman from Ireland. We talked to Nick Easter about England. For the French squad, I was privileged enough to have a wee chat with Paul Gustard, former defence coach for England and Harlequins former head coach. He's working over in Stade Francais, so he allowed me a few minutes of his time to go over the French squad, given that he works in the top 14. Certainly had some pretty good insight. So we'll chat with him in just a second, but I should say a big thanks to eToro, because this episode is brought to you by eToro. They are the official investing and trading platform of Premiership Rugby. Tackle investing the smart way and join millions of UK investors on eToro today, the friendly platform for serious investors. eToro is a multi-asset investment platform. The value of your investments may go up or down. Your capital is at risk. But yes, let's hear from Paul on what he thought of the squad, and we'll get back to you in a sec. Six Nations, folks, is not too far away, and France have named their squad. I am joined by Paul Gustard, who just so happens to be working in France at the moment with Stade Francais in his role as defence coach. Paul, mate, how's it going? Have you seen the squad? Were you surprised about Aldrit being named captain?
Well, firstly, thank you for having me. Seen the squad. Obviously, big news over here when the squads are announced, like any home union. When the teams are announced, there's lots of clamour, lots of excitement. Regards to Aldrit, I think he's probably the obvious choice. I know there was rumoured about Olivon, but I know from speaking to Ronan at La Rochelle that Aldrit's a big leader for them. He's a big figure for them, and his return to La Rochelle into the starting team after an agreed absence between La Rochelle and the player has also meant that they've started winning games again. So he's had a huge impact. And in the changing room, I think he's a big personality. So no real surprise there. Obviously, with Dupont missing, I think every other home union is delighted. And, they're grateful that he's not there. But he'll be a big loss to France for sure. Lucu's a great player. Lagarec at Racing's a great player as well. But Dupont's obviously something special.
If there's one side, though, that can kind of afford to lose its point. I mean, no, he's irreplaceable, like one for one, but France's depth in that position is pretty incredible.
Yeah, I think anyone that's followed rugby for any period of time knows that France have this little Napoleon character, the little general at 9. That tends to be where the team evolves around. You know, a lot of other teams, it's normally the 10, the first 5/8. But in France, it tends to be the 9. He goal kicks a lot. He tends to be the key decision maker. A lot of play comes often because of the size of the forwards. And certainly, yeah, you're right. Look, France have got a real depth in that position. Look, who's a fantastic player. Looks a bit like Jason Statham as well, so he probably goes all right with the girls. And then Lagarec's been on fire for the last 2-3 seasons. You know, really an impish kind of intuitive kind of 9. You know, sticks a lot around the fringes, in Dupont sort of style, and it's been an real form for Racing over the last kind of 18 months.
Yeah, it's kind of incredible that Lagarec hasn't actually been capped yet. I know he sat on the bench once for France, but I feel like for any other country, he's probably already been capped.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that shows the depth they've had, right? I mean, look who has obviously come in and done really well. You've got people like Baptiste Serin at Toulon. That's also, you know, one of probably the best 9s that you see playing in the Northern Hemisphere at the moment, but can't get a look in. And that probably shows the depth of the squad that they've got. Toulon are flying high in the top 14 at the moment. And Serin's been a big play for them. And unfortunately for them, just like we mentioned Aldrit before, his injuries also coincide with a big downturn in Toulon's performances on the field.
Now, you mentioned earlier, mate, big forwards in France. Well, I've been having a look at the squad itself, and one of the uncapped guys, Emmanuel Miafu, goodness gracious me, that's 145 kilos of Samoan heritage, New Zealand-born, Australian-raised, and now, you know, been loving life in France to the point that this is a new homeland. He wants to pay for the country. He's a big unit to be excited about.
He's a big boy, right? He's a big boy. And obviously the other fellow they've got, Roman T, let's call him, Tau, is also a monster. And it kind of fits the profile of the locks that I like to choose here. They normally have a real big, heavy lock. And then they have an athletic lock. And then the back row, they choose a jumping option in the back row to compensate for the extra weight that they put in the second row. Mafu's something different, though. Obviously, standing over 2 meters tall, as he said, 145. That's program weight. So we know that he's definitely heavier. We know he's definitely heavy. He's eaten more bread and drank more wine and eaten more cheese than that probably program weight suggests, right? So he's probably over 150. He's a huge man. He's got great offloading skills. Obviously, a big man to bring down, extra ballast in the scrum, and more defense and more attack. It's obviously a potent weapon as well. And like for like replacement with Tau. And, certainly there that it's shown their depth. And obviously for us at Stade Francais, we've got one of our second rows re-included since 2019, the World Cup.
Yeah.
Paul Gustard, who is, for me, I've coached a lot of good second rows in my time, like Samara Toji and George Cruz, etc. But probably Courtney Laws in England and this guy, Paul Gustard, are probably the two standouts for me that I've had the privilege to coach and work alongside.
How well did that news go down in the Stade Francais camp? Did it come as a bit of a surprise? Because I know, like, every time there's a team naming, I have a wee sneaky look at the Facebook page of the relevant team just to see what people are saying. And French fans to that one did seem a little bit taken aback. What about in the squad?
Well, look, for us, he's our captain. He's played tremendously well. He's only 30. I think had a disagreement with the French selection committee, shall we say, a couple of years ago, and probably that's led to his absence rather than his performance on the field, because he's been absolutely imperious for us. His line-out work's exceptional. His work rate is exceptional. He plays more like a third line. He plays more like a back row. Very physical, very abrasive around the contact area. Very athletic. His work rate off the ball is tremendous. So for us, we're obviously delighted, and it's no surprise for me. If he was an English lock, I can imagine he'd have 60, 70 caps by now, easily. He's a tremendous player. He's a good man, and we're really, really, really happy that he's back involved. The downside, I was going to say that we've got 3 second rows injured at the moment, and if we lose him as well, we're in a bit of trouble. We'll have to try and makeshift one of our back rows into second row.
Yeah, exactly. Someone's going to have to shift into the second row.
Yeah, that's it. It was normally my role, so I'm quite thankful I don't play anymore.
I was going to say, because as well as the news would have been received well with Gabriel making the squad, Sekou Makalu's omission was one of the more notable ones when having a look through the team sheet, where I just assumed he must be injured because Galthié seems to love him as that kind of hybrid, loose forward, exceptional players, can cover the back line in a pinch.
Yeah, look, he's got something different, Sekou. His athletic potential is a significant competitive advantage to other athletes that are playing. He's a complete opposite, if you like, of the likes of Mafu and Tau. He's light. He's 105, 106 kilos, but he's electrifyingly quick. He covers 37 kilometers an hour, I think. He's super, super fast, and hence he's played on the wing for France. A tremendous athlete, probably not quite banging form as he has been in the past. Had a couple of injuries, just small injuries over the course of the first kind of 2-3 months of the season. And maybe they're just looking at a couple of other options, or just trying to give him a bit of a kick up the arse as well.
Speaking of other options, I mean, have any of the uncapped guys that you're kind of particularly excited about? They've got this guy Abadi in the back row. They've got a couple of other backs like Deporte in the midfield, Antoine Gibert, the number 10.
Yeah, look, I think Abadi's probably more of a surprise to me, just because the profile of player that he is doesn't normally suit the kind of French model. He's more of an industrious kind of work rate kind of player. He's probably more a Blackadder, if you like, than you would expect an Aldrit or Makalu or someone like this. Good set piece, very good in the line out. As I said, huge numbers, big work rate player. And there's lots of those kind of players in France. As easily you could have picked him. We've got a guy called Mathieu Hirigoyen at Stade Francais, also a very good player, strong defender, good set piece, big work rate, and there's lots of those kind of profile players in France. So he was a bit of a surprise to me. The young kid at 12, you pronounce his name a lot better than I do, but I come from Newcastle, so my language isn't the best in my own tongue, never mind in French. But he is, it shows you probably how well Bordeaux have done at the beginning of this year under Yannick Brou. They've got their 9, their 10, their 12, their 13, their 14, their 11. Buros at fullback's probably thinking, what's wrong? What's he done wrong? It probably shows you the strength and how many points they've scored. Only second in terms of points scored in the competition, behind Racing, which brings us on to Racing and Gibert, the 10. That's been playing for them in great form. Again, an intuitive kind of play, plays 9-10 like a lot of the 9s do in France, as we've seen with Dupont, of course, with France and with Toulouse. Morgan Parra, one of our coaches now, again, played 10 for France as well, and obviously made his name as a 9. And Gibert fits that same profile. Very intuitive, very instinctive, good acceleration, decent kicking game, and probably good reward for how well he's played at the beginning this year.
Apart from Ligaret, because they've only got the 2 9s, I mean, he's pretty much guaranteed to get a cap. Of the other uncapped guys, do you think there's anyone that stands out as like pretty much guaranteed to get a cap? Because some of the guys, he may just get in the squad just for Galthié to have a wee look at.
Yeah, look, I think as we know, the Six Nations is pretty attritional. It's a condensed tournament over 2.5 months. We're going to see some injuries for sure. So I think at some stage during the tournament, these guys will get capped. I would be surprised with their opening game as it is that they don't go too far away from what they know. I'd probably see the likes of Big Marfu. I think he'd be involved because bringing him in, they've waited 5 years to get him domesticized and being eligible for France. I think that he's probably the most likely to feature. And then outside, with the cover that they've got, Gilbert potentially would find himself on the bench because he covers 9 and 10, which gives them flexibility that they've used in the past. We often see a 6-2 split, or in the top 14, a 7-1 split, like we've seen with South Africa as well, where teams try and go heavy on the forwards and therefore need dual position players that can do 2 or 3 positions, and Gilbert would fit that mold. And then outside that, probably the young kid at 12 probably will miss out, because I think Dante is such an important player for France. His win record is exceptional. Whenever he's played, I think all but one game they've won. And Fickou seems to be a settled 12-13, and Mafana, the Bordeaux 13, plays centre and also wing. So I think probably you're less likely to see much change there apart from Gilbert and Mafu.
Yeah, that Dante Fickou midfield has been absolutely brutal. I guess lastly, expectations-wise, on the back of a, disappointing Rugby World Cup campaign at home, is the expectation pretty much that these guys go out and get themselves a Grand Slam, especially with Ireland at home?
Oh, look, it's tough, right? I mean, it's very tough. The margins, obviously, at that level of sport are so small. I mean, I think France played tremendously against South Africa, probably conceded very cheaply a couple of the scores early on, but, outscored them in terms of tries. Probably a more ball-in-hand team that we've seen from some of the other teams that got towards the final, and the likes of England and the likes of South Africa. I do expect some kind of backlash. I do expect, particularly we've seen in the European Champions Cup, some of the French teams at home have been absolutely on fire. Bordeaux smacking Saracens by 50 points at the weekend against a strong Saracens team as well with all their internationals. So there's teams that are playing well. They're at home. There's certainly some kind of pent-up frustration from not delivering the World Cup that everyone expected them to do on home soil. Which, by the way, isn't the easiest thing to do, as we've seen from World Cup history, that winning a World Cup on home soil is not always the easiest, right? Yeah. You've experienced that yourself. I've experienced that myself as an Englishman. So it doesn't always go your way, but I think France still play good rugby, and the margins are so small. I think to say France failed, yes, they failed to lift the trophy, but in terms of performances, they were still a very credible team with a lot of threat. And I imagine that will continue to roll on, and I think Ireland might see a very angry, very physical, and a very determined French side in 2 weeks' time.
Angry, backlash. Yeah, these words, I think, ring pretty true, I would imagine, with a lot of the French fans. But we look forward to it. It's only a couple of weeks away. I hope you get a bit of time during the season to actually stop and watch some of the games. But yeah, I'll let you get to work. Cheers, mate, Paul, for coming along. It was a real pleasure to have you on.
Thanks for having me, and good night.
So yeah, cheers to Paul for coming along. That was really, really insightful stuff. I do look forward to seeing some of these uncapped French guys get a crack. I mean, especially Meafu with that pure size. Halagahu as well is another big unit in the second row. He's 120 odd kilos, which compared to Meafu seems the smaller of the two. But yeah, a very sizable unit. The Bordeaux guys in that back line really, really look deadly. I've seen a little bit of the kind of Champions Cup. I haven't seen enough top 14, but yeah, they are really, really cutting loose this season. Small part of me wonders maybe the midfield of Fickou and Dante may be under a little bit of threat, just partly looking at the ages and partly looking at the form of some of the other guys, having had a wee look at some of the stats. I mean, Dante is 31. And certainly, his defensive game, his ability to tackle and turnover, plus big ball carrier, has been immense. And Fickou at 29, his defensive reads and his ability to just kind of pop up anywhere, seemingly like Johnny on the spot, wherever he's needed, he pops up. invaluable and the most capped guy in this side by a mile with 85 caps, but still, Deporter, Gaetan, there are these guys who are going to be pushing, and Moefana as well, who's Mr. Versatile. Maybe sees himself on the bench due to his ability to cover so many spots, but yeah, these guys are going to be pushing for spots. Some of the other guys, I mean, we mentioned Makalu with Paul. He's not in the squad. Villiers seems like he's probably done at this point with the likes of BLBRA. Labelle, you've got some really fleet-footed, quick wingers. I mean, Peno is an absolute lock on one wing. You would assume Ramos is there at fullback. It's probably between BLBRA and Labelle for that left wing. Louis BLBRA for France at the World Cup, showed that he's just an incredible talent. So probably lock him in. Flamand is one of the guys injured. Intermark is still obviously unavailable. Bougarit in the number 2 jersey is also one of the guys who misses out through injury. But yeah, overall, the squad seems pretty steady. But nice to see a few of these younger guys, uncapped guys, brought in. So it's not wholesale changes. It's not ultra conservative, just keep with the core that went to the World Cup. You're replacing one of the world's best players with some exciting young talent, with Antoine Dupont being missing. You've got a captain who is an absolute first choice guy, no doubt about that. So there's a lot to like about this French side. You guys let us know your thoughts. How do you reckon the French are going to go with Ireland at home? Do you think they are the obvious favourites? Scotland away, Italy at home, Wales away, and then England at home. The fixtures list seems pretty doable. England and Ireland at home for this French side. But yes, you guys let us know your thoughts. How do you reckon France are going to go? Cheers to Paul for coming along. Cheers to eToro for sponsoring the episode. Cheers to Planet Rugby for helping out as well. But yes, you guys take care of yourselves, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.